Today on Fear and Greed, Donald Trump threatens to double the tax rate paid by foreigners, including Australian individuals and companies operating in the US. Qantas overhauls its frequent flyer program, and Netflix hits 300 million subscribers globally thanks to Squid Game and the Mike Tyson v Jake Paul fight. Plus, the local share market gets within 1% of an all-time record, and Commonwealth Bank named Australia's most valuable brand. Welcome to Fear and Greed, daily business news for people who make their own decisions. It is Thursday, the 23rd of January, 2025. I'm Michael Thompson, and good morning, Sean Aylmer.
Good morning, Michael.
Sean, the main story this morning, President Donald Trump has suggested he could impose tariffs on China next week and double tax rates for foreign individuals and companies working in the United States.
The rush of announcements continue, Michael. He was talking about 10% tariffs on China. He said they're still on the table, probably 1 February is what he said. The reason? Well, China is selling fentanyl to Mexico and Canada, the new US president claims. Hence, he thought that they should be getting some sort of tariff on them. Previously, he had threatened 60% tariffs, so I suppose 10% tariff ain't too bad. He's already said that he wants to put 25% tariffs on goods out of Mexico and Canada from February 1. What else did he say? Well, don't rule out further sanctions against Russia. He talked about European countries contributing more to NATO. He talked about 1.5 million Ukrainians and Russians combined lost in the war. Now, the number's probably closer to 250,000. That's from estimates from Russia and Ukraine. Donald Trump reckons there's 1.5 million Ukrainians and Russians that have died. He directed all federal diversity, equity and inclusion staff to be put on paid leave. Agencies now need to develop plans to get rid of them. He's taken down all publicly focused DEI web pages, diversity, equity, inclusion web pages. He said he's open to Elon Musk buying TikTok. Now, it's actually the US version of TikTok. He's got 600 million monthly users on X. Now, in the US, TikTok has about 120 million users. So that means Elon Musk could get some sort of control over them as well. Donald Trump announced a massive investment program worth up to 500 billion US dollars, talking about 800 billion Aussie, for infrastructure tied to artificial intelligence. He formed a new partnership, called it Stargate. Groups involved include OpenAI, Oracle, SoftBank. The idea is that they build big data centers because we know that there's a lot of energy needs for the next decade or 2 decades. These data centers need to be built, and that's what that's all about. Mr. Trump yesterday started the day with a national prayer service. Reverend Marianne Buddy lectured him on LGBTQ and immigrant rights, begged him to have mercy on scared families. Afterwards, when he was asked about it, Trump described the service as not too exciting.
Yeah, and then what did he go on to say? After that, he said, I didn't think it was a good service. They can do much better. It's just constantly providing feedback. What I thought was interesting about that service was it's probably not something that the president is going to hear a lot, that kind of very direct feedback to his face, considering kind of the appointments that are around him and what we saw last time where there wasn't a great deal of
candid feedback.
Candid feedback, exactly. And the only difference this time was that it was delivered very, very publicly. Sean, is there anything yet that's likely to directly hit Australians and Australian companies? I suppose the tax potential for tax changes is the big one.
Yeah, it is. He didn't specifically mention Australia, but he did threaten double tax rates for foreign nationals, that would be any Australian working in the US, and for foreign companies operating in the US. He said he wants to hit back at discriminatory levies on American multinationals. In his America First trade policy, the US president referred to a rather obscure 90-year-old provision in the US tax code that empowers him to retaliate against foreign countries by imposing punitive taxes on their citizens and businesses in America, according to the FT. So that certainly got things moving globally yesterday when he started talking about doubling tax rates for foreign nationals and companies. Otherwise, the Foreign Minister, Penny Wong, held talks with Marco Rubio, the new US Secretary of State. She said that the talks were focused on the economic ties with the US. She actually downplayed tariff concerns. But the bottom line in all this, no one knows. Who knows what's going to happen?
It's pretty good, though, that within 24 hours, our foreign minister is already having those conversations.
Yeah, yes, you're right there. I mean, it shows that we're a significant partner to the US.
Yeah, absolutely. We're not second week or third week. We are kind of first couple of days. That's good. I like that.
It's good.
All right, back home again now, Sean. And New South Wales police have arrested a man for allegedly spray painting swastikas and trying to set fire to a synagogue, just as federal police claim that foreign actors could be paying local criminals to commit anti-Semitic acts.
Very worrying. On Tuesday, the Australian Federal Police Commissioner Reece Kershaw said police were looking into the possibility that overseas parties had paid local criminals. Yesterday, Anthony Albanese was asked about it. He wouldn't be drawn on it, and he actually wouldn't say too much about the National Cabinet meeting that occurred on Tuesday night either. He did say, though, that some of the perpetrators aren't being motivated by ideology. They're just being paid, and that's why they're doing it. Not clear who's making those payments, but his point being that it was a financial decision, not an ideological decision.
All right, plenty still to come today, Sean. We're talking Qantas overhauling its frequent flyer program, Commonwealth Bank's valuable brand, Netflix and its subscriber boom. So much still to come. Don't go anywhere. We'll be back in a moment with the rest of the day's business news. Sean, Donald Trump's push into oil and gas has hit local energy leader Woodside, with the group pausing work on a large-scale hydrogen development and solar project.
It came just 24 hours after the inauguration. Now, just immediately after the inauguration, Donald Trump came out and said that he would allow, once again, drilling in the Arctic. CEO of Woodside, Meg O'Neill, said in the US, free markets and capital markets determine the pace of investment. Sometimes, read between the lines, clearly the regulatory and the environment in the US is much more friendly now to oil and gas, less so to green energy. Woodside is still pushing ahead with some green energy projects, including its Beaumont ammonia project in the south of the US. Now, late last year, Woodside bought a US LNG project for $1.2 billion. It's got to decide whether or not to go ahead with that project in the next couple of months. Given the regulatory changes in the US, certainly the demand for energy in the US, I reckon that project will get the go-ahead now. It's amazing how quickly Donald Trump's ascension has changed decisions from companies. Over the past year, Fortescue Metals, Origin have both backed down on green projects. BP and Shell have done that. Also, Woodside have done it now. Its share price, Woodside share price, closed down 2% yesterday.
Sean, over the last couple of years, there's been a lot of talk, some very optimistic targets for new homes being built in Australia, but the number is way, way, way below the government's target, with just 43,000 new dwellings being built in the first 3 months of the National Housing Accord.
So that was for the September 24 quarter. Figures from the Bureau of Statistics came out yesterday, 43,247 dwelling commencements. So they're not even final builds, they're actual dwelling commencements. Good news is it's about 8% higher than a year earlier. Bad news is nowhere near the government's forecast. Now, under the government's target, under the National Housing Accord, 1.2 million homes should be built over 5 years from the middle of last year. Canberra's providing about $3.5 billion to the states, territories and local governments to get it done. If you do the math, you need a run rate of 60,000 per quarter. Only twice in the last 8 years have 60,000 new homes or new dwelling commencements begin in a quarter, and certainly didn't happen in the last September quarter. It was only 43,000.
So it might be a little optimistic, you reckon then, Sean?
Yeah, well, a little bit of work to do, shall we say.
Yeah, a little bit. Might be understating it a little bit. The local share market, Sean, hit a new 7-week intraday high. It's only 1% off its all-time high now.
Sure is. Investors like what they're hearing from Donald Trump, obviously. It closed up 0.3% yesterday to 8,430 points. Uranium stocks did best, closely followed by the big tech companies. Big miners were the underperformers. Basically, tech stocks jumped on the news of that Stargate project, all that money, $500 billion US dollars going into data centers, artificial intelligence infrastructure. That helped companies here like WiseTech Global, Pro Medicus, Xero. Commonwealth Bank, Macquarie also did well. Bit of corporate news around. Mineral Sands Group Iluka fell after a disappointing quarterly production report. Uranium miner Paladin jumped sharply after output for the December quarter met expectations. And Beach Energy rose after its December quarter production report.
Yeah, we've got a great interview coming up for investors after the show, Sean. You're speaking with Ben Gilbert from Jarden Australia.
We are. We're talking about the sale of, or the closure of Catch by Wesfarmers, the e-commerce business that Wesfarmers owns. That's where we start. And then we talk about e-commerce players in Australia, the little ones like Kogan, right through to the behemoths like Wesfarmers and Woolies and Amazon. We talk about the economics of them and how to invest in them. It's a really fascinating chat. Whenever you talk to Ben, you have a good talk. There's no doubt about it.
Yeah, I reckon Ben would have to be one of the best in the country at simplifying and explaining some of this data and just putting it in easy to understand kind of terms that any investor will be able to get some value out of. So stick around. That one's coming up after the show. International markets, what's going on there?
Oil. Good news at the Bowser, Michael. Donald Trump wants to drill for more oil. Well, that means more supply pushes down prices. Brent crude is back below $79 a barrel. Gold's pushing back towards record levels, trading around $27.50 an ounce. You know, in a volatile Trump world, throwing your money in gold's not a bad place to be. Well, at least that's what investors think. Iron ore's trading just over $100 a tonne, and the Aussie dollar's back below 63 US cents.
Qantas has overhauled its frequent flyer program. We mentioned this earlier in the show, Sean, meaning that you are going to need more points to travel on some international routes.
Yes. So the trade-off is that it's actually easier to use Qantas frequent flyer points on partner airlines, Air France, KLM, Finnair, for example. But basically, the number of points required to book classic rewards fares will rise by between 5 and 20% on certain Qantas routes. The number of points needed for classic upgrades and bookings and partner airlines will also rise from August. This is all going on as Qantas's share price hit a record high yesterday of $9.44. Its previous peak was $9.39. It's actually quadrupled since its COVID low back in March 2020. Quite a phenomenal run. Now, this time, the spike was as much about lower fuel prices on the back of Donald Trump's comments rather than the actual frequent flyer program, but it's a stock which has done really, really well.
Commonwealth Bank is the country's most valuable brand, Sean, but I reckon the standout here is the remarkable recovery of the big supermarkets, Woolies and Coles. They have rebounded from what can only be described as an uncomfortable 2024 to be back in the top 5.
I agree. Quite remarkable. I suppose we use them all the time.
But they got hammered last year. Like there were all the allegations of price gouging. There was the investigation into sham specials. And there was brand survey after brand survey last year that just said Coles and Woolies have plummeted down the list. So this is quite a remarkable comeback.
It is. And it's a value of the brand, which is a bit different to reputation. So that is one thing.
Yeah, good point.
In terms of value of the brand, Commonwealth Bank comes in at number 1, Woolies, then Telstra, then ANZ, then Coles. Brand Finance Australia's annual survey looks at how much of a company's profits are attributable to its brand. Other companies to show improvement in brand value include Qantas, after an absolute horror show in 2023, Jetstar, ditto, and Kmart. Now, Kmart's done really well on the back of the Enco products that they're selling. Some of the notable declines: Fortescue Metals Group, Harvey Norman, and BHP. Optus, once again, slid further, but we could have said that any time in the last 2 or 3 years, I think.
It's unfortunately a fairly consistent story for Optus, isn't it? Turning to international news now, Netflix added a record 19 million subscribers in the December quarter as viewers flocked to stream the new installment of Squid Game. God, there was a lot of ads leading up because it launched on Boxing Day, I think it was.
Right.
And it was just ad after ad. Every bus stop, everything, everywhere was advertising Squid Game. They had a lot of live sporting events. The the much hyped boxing match between Mike Tyson and Jake Paul. Did you watch it, Sean?
No.
Oh.
No. Did you watch it?
I did. I'm like I don't know. I get sucked into the hype around these big events. And I'm like, I have to watch it. If I don't watch it, I'm missing out on something, which is what they want you to feel, right? And so I watched it.
Was it entertaining?
It was entertaining. It was a little bit uncomfortable because of the significant age gap.
Yeah. Fair enough. Well, at the end of last year, Netflix had 301 million subscribers, 15% higher than a year earlier. Its share price surged on that news. It's up 80% over the last year. Netflix said it would raise prices in the US, Canada, Portugal, and Argentina. Why? Because it can. I think is the answer to that. It hasn't said that it's going to raise prices in Australia. The streaming group made a big push into live sporting events in that final quarter last year. Tyson v. Paul was the big one, 65 million streams worldwide. Also, the big shows for the quarter. On Christmas Day, it streamed a pair of National Football League games. One of them featured Beyonce at halftime. That reached an average of 24 million viewers on Christmas Day. Well, I suppose if you're with your family, you may as well watch the footy rather than talk to them. I don't know. Also, the debut of the second season of Squid Game, in its first week, 68 million views. How's that?
That's huge. I'm not even going to ask you if you watched it. You just don't watch anything. No. You're just not in touch with popular culture, are you, Sean?
No, that's fair enough. No, I'm not.
Oh, come on, fight back. Where's the spirit today here, Sean? One you will have seen. I'm sure you will have seen this. 1969 Porsche, which is used in the Steve McQueen film that you would have seen, Sean, because it's your vintage, Le Mans, which is 1971. The film came out.
Too early for me, Michael. Too early.
Oh, my God.
Have you seen it?
Swing and a miss. No, I haven't.
No. There you go. There you go.
But to be fair, that was, 15 years before I was even born. So
you're having a go at me? And that was how many years before I was born? Oh, let's not go there.
No, let's not. It's currently owned by Jerry Seinfeld, the Porsche. It failed to sell at auction over the weekend, being taken off the market when bidding got to $40 million US.
Yeah. So, firstly, is it Porsche or Porsche?
Porsche.
I
say that with conviction, without being 100% sure. But
so it's Porsche. It's a 917K. I'm assuming it's a 917K, not a 917K.
Oh dear.
Yeah. So the Porsche 917K, one of the most recognisable Porsches in history. It would have been the most expensive if it sold for $40 million. There's an auction in Florida. There are about 4,500 cars up for sale, and we're talking top notch here. Bidding began at $21 million. Jerry Seinfeld apparently bought it in 2002 for $6 million. Media reports say he still owns it. Funny thing, it got to $40 million and the auctioneer took the car off the market. No one's quite sure why. So we have to wait and see about that. The highest seller on the day that actually, where the hammer came down, was a 1966 Ford GT40, $11 million. One for you. The 1967 Jaguar ED type Roadster, used in the Austin Powers movies, the Shaguar.
Yes.
Went for $1.4 million.
Oh, that's a bargain.
You think?
Yes, absolutely. Just for a 60s Jag of any kind of variety, let alone the fact that it was used in an Austin Powers movie, multiple Austin Powers movies.
Yes.
That would be if I had $1.4 million. I mean, I'd probably be paying off the mortgage, but once I'd paid that off, I'd be buying that car.
Yeah.
And I wish to retract what I said earlier about the pronunciation. There's a fair chance it could in fact be pronounced Porsche.
I think it is Porsche, actually.
And that's the closest you will ever get to me admitting that I was
wrong. Fonzie style.
Up next is the Fear and Greed Daily interview with Ben Gilbert from Jarden, Australia, a great one for investors. It is coming up in the Fear and Greed playlist on your podcast platform or at fearandgreed.com.au. Thank you very much, Sean.
Thanks, Michael.
It is Thursday, the 23rd of January, 2025. Make sure you're following the podcast and please join us online on LinkedIn, Instagram, X, TikTok and Facebook. I'm Michael Thompson. That was Fear and Greed. Have a great day.